Welcome to another episode of the Cool Tool Show and Tell. Our special guest this week is Rob Ray. Hey, Rob, would you mind introducing yourself to our listeners and watchers?
Not at all. Sure. I'm happy to. I'm Rob Ray. I'm from Los Angeles. I'm an artist and a professor of design at California State University, San Bernardino.
Well, welcome, Rob. I'm really looking forward to your selection of tools. We'd love
Thanks.
having
I'm excited to be here.
Artists online. It's really great. So can you give me your first tool? What's excites you these days?
Yeah, sure. I will admit this was a challenge because I'm such a fan of cool tools that I feel like most of the things I own have been on cool tools or is because of cool tools. So I was really intimidated, I guess, at first. I was like, oh, what would I do? And I was like, no, I got this from cool tools. So then I came up with a theme, which I call cool tools of chance. So,
okay.
Yeah. So all of these are sort of chance-based tools that I use in my life for fun reasons. And the first tool of chance that I have is a Chessex brand Dungeons and Dragons style dice set. And that is a set of dice that many people might be familiar of if you do role-playing games. It's a 4-sided die, a 6-sided die, an 8-sided die, 2 10-sided die, a 12-sided die, and a 20-sided die. And for those of you, they sound like this, which many people know the sound.
and the idea is that what does this variety of dies give you that the normal 2 cube dies don't?
Right. Yeah, sure. So I use these in a kind of wacky way, I guess, in my life. And I use them to help me make decisions and kind of frame my thinking or to disrupt myself from getting stuck.
So it's like the I Ching a little bit, where you are throwing it down and you're kind of willing to obey wherever it leads you in a certain sense. And so the I Ching, has coins, and they're kind of like instead of dies.
Yep.
But those are still pretty simple. But
yes,
why do you need the elaborate, multi-variant, dimensional things that you get with this?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think you could totally use just a standard set of 6-sided dice if you wanted to. I often might carry 1 or 2 of those in my pocket. It's more easy to carry than a whole pile, but I just like the fun of them. And also it kind of, again, frames your thinking. So I'll give you an example. So I don't like working out, but I try to,
Right.
And so to make it fun, I roll a 20-sided die to figure out how long I'm going to work out. And so a lot of people,
the answer would be whatever. That's how many minutes.
Yes, that's right.
That's right. 1 minute, 20 is 20 minutes.
That's right. And so, if you get a 1 minute workout, then you're totally excited that, the die dictated today that you only have to work out for 1 minute.
The universe has conspired to say, I only need to do 1 minute.
That's right. That's right. But then you really understand the law of averages, and that most times, you're not going to get that. Right. It's a very rare chance that you'd get 1 or 20. You'll probably get something else. And then you can combine die like a dungeon master or someone who does role playing would. You might roll 3 6-sided die for your workout. Right. That will be a maximum of 18 minutes, but a minimum of 3, because 1 plus 1 plus 1 is 3. So that gives you you can combine the die in fun ways to further constrain or kind of excite your decision making process. I also use them because people really don't like chance. So I don't know if you've ever had this situation, but if you're in a group of people and you can't decide where to eat or something, anyone who proposes like, let's flip a coin will motivate the decision in this really interesting way, because people don't like leaving it up to nobody, And so I also use them in my teaching to help stimulate that sort of thing. So I'll say something like, okay, I would like you to do 8 of these exercises, but how about we roll a 10-sided die, and then whatever that number is, that's how many of them you have to do for your homework assignment. That makes me look good because there's only 2 chances that it'll be above 8, a 9 or a 10. And often then they feel like they got a good deal, because if I roll a 4, then they only have to do 4 of the exercises, which is fine. But
you're saying in this case, they do like the chance. You don't
in this
have
case,
the thing where the classroom rebels and says, no, we don't want.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. And I also have them roll them. Sometimes I have them sort of roll their own assignment. So I'll say like, I'll give them a worksheet that says like, roll a dice for, I teach UI UX. So I teach a lot of that is like website building and stuff. So if I have them do like a test navigation or something, I'll say, just roll the dice to give yourself how many navigation items you have to build. That way it's like 6 or 8 or 3. Because often that's, as a designer, that's what we're dealing with. We're dealing with these sort of circumstances outside of our control, our quantities outside of our control that we then have to design into. And so I use the dice for that as well. It makes me look less evil.
Okay. The die that you're actually recommending, besides the fact that they're multi-sided and various, are they in any other way superior to other complicated dice?
I find them superior, and I'll explain why. The first reason why is they're cheap. Could
you show them again?
Yes, certainly. Yeah. And they sound great. They have a really classic dice sound.
Okay,
these
you have a handful of die, and they're red in this case.
Yes, that's right. And so here's a classic 20-sided
complicated platonic shape, and then there's the cube.
Yep.
And so this is a set, and you're saying it's a cheap set. That's one thing?
Yep, it's cheap, and which I really like because I think, I know you're a fan of cheap tools as well. I think a thing that I like about them is they're nice, but they're not so nice I wouldn't give them away to someone who's interested in them.
Oh, I see. So how much do they cost?
I think they're roughly like between $8 and $12, depending on shipping and that sort of thing.
Right. Okay.
They can be even less, which is also great. And the reason I really like the Chessex dice is they're so enthusiastic about dice. It's infectious. Like if you go to their website, they have all these different colors. They have all these different sizes. They make these kind of bespoke runs that are really ugly and strange.
Right.
They're really wacky. And they even sell what they call a pound of dice, which is a 30-pound box of dice. So you could get a huge box and then give them away for free. And I have considered it, but
dice by the pound. Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
That would encourage you to give them away.
And they're in Indiana, that company.
And
I really want to go there.
I remember, I think Mark at one point was recommending some kind of novelty weighted dice.
Oh, nice. Yeah.
And I assume that is that ever in your own toolkit?
I definitely, I've definitely thought about it, especially in classes. I think it would be fun to have them be like, wait a minute, like, and inject some doubt. I'm really a fan of the Museum of Jurassic Technology in Los Angeles. For people who haven't been, it's a really amazing museum in a kind of interesting sense of that. And Ricky Jay, the magician, has a wonderful display of dice called the exhibit is called Rotten Luck, and it's device made from the material that film is made from. It's sort of gelatin, cellulose. Yeah, thank you. And they're very flammable, as far as I know. And they've decayed in this wonderful way over time, these dice, and it's a really beautiful. Now that he's passed on, it's a really kind of beautiful testament to Ricky Jay's curiosity and
celluloid was not very stable, and which is one of the reasons why the earliest films were also disintegrating. Besides being flammable, it was also disintegrating.
Right. Ouch. Yeah.
Okay, Ricky, that's really great. How about your second tool?
Yeah, my second tool is another cool tool of chance, and it's the thrift store. And the thrift store, is a place, maybe more than a tool, but I really like cool tools, very broad interpretation of what a tool is. And I will call out something specifically, and that is a website called thriftshopper.com. It's a search tool to find thrift stores in a town. And so if you're driving through a town getting gas and you want to know, like, oh, where's a thrift store around here? Google Maps is good, but I really like the Thrift Shopper because it has a little bit extra information and photos and stuff. And often a thrift store, especially photos, can be good because some of them are hard to find. They're in tiny, almost garage-like spaces. And so I really like the thriftshopper.com as a way to find them.
Being a connoisseur of thrift stores, what can you say? What are some of your tips about finding great stuff?
I actually, it's cool you brought up the I Ching. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I think of the thrift store as an I Ching. Like, you never know what you're going to get at the thrift store, but you'll definitely get something useful for your thinking and making. I am not a clothes person so much, and I think a lot of people think of thrift stores as a place to find clothing. I think of them as a kind of lumberyard of creativity. It's this sort of raw material repository, and so I often gravitate towards the pots and pans, the electronics, the weird piles of cables. But I also found I brought this is John Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath, the unabridged audio book that I got for $3. And I looked this up on some of the retail outlets, and audiobooks is one of the things I think just hasn't gotten cheaper over time, strangely enough. And so I really like that.
This is CDs or is this tapes?
These are CDs, so I did have to convert them to MP3 for my listening device.
Yeah, that's really great. I know I follow a YouTuber, Jessa, who likes to take thrift store paintings and remake them.
Nice.
Into more interesting paintings. What other kinds of finds have you found? And I guess, can you tell before you head in about what might be a more promising thrift store than others? Are there certain brands? Are there certain indicators to people to know whether, well, that one is very promising and that one is probably not?
I lean towards the independent, kind of more scrappy thrift stores, because I find the people in them are more interesting. And that's part of going to the thrift store is, it's like going to a garage sale. You're just going to end up talking to somebody about something. And those types of thrift stores attract the local population, I think, in a way that's really fun.
Rather than the chains, meaning like the Goodwill.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But again, a thing that's nice about the thrift store is it's not up to the thrift store what shows up in them, right? And so any thrift store, I think, is a good thrift store. I did find, this is my coffee mug this morning, and this is a particularly great thrift store find. This is a coffee mug from outside of Vandenberg Air Force Base. And this is a commemorative coffee mug celebrating the launch of a spy satellite that supposedly doesn't exist. The K-13. The K-13 has just recently been exposed when Donald Trump shared photos from what they think was K-13. So you can find things at the thrift store that you just could not buy anywhere else, and maybe no one wants you to have.
I see, because they were discarded by somebody who worked there.
Exactly. It was probably someone's like, hey, we did it. Here's a coffee mug. And then it ended up in my hands.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So one of the changes of mind that I've had, and I've learned over the years about scavenging, is that you really want to, if you're a serious scavenger, you really want to scavenge only for your current project. Otherwise you turn into a hoarder. So
I'll try to take that as a lesson, Kevin.
So the rule of thumb is this, kind of use this right now, because the idea of like scavenging for the future is very dangerous.
It is very dangerous.
You accumulate things. And so and here's the thing. If you're a really good scavenger, that will work out, because this is what I've discovered is that if I need some lumber now, I'll go scavenging for it, and I will find it. There's enough being thrown away that, with few exceptions, you don't really need to stockpile your scavenging.
Yes. Because I, to your point, I have deep emotional attachment to VHS tapes that I paid 50 cents for that I can't get rid of. And it's like, these will come back again in my life. They cost 50 cents, but they're taking up too many square feet in my studio. Wise words.
So that's one caution for you out there. If you're a beginner scavenger, just scavenger for the current need.
Definitely. And, or at least go small. That's my like I scavenge Blu-ray DVDs of movies that I like, because those are now hitting thrift stores because of just it's 2023. People are kind of getting rid of DVDs and Blu-rays, and I've got a bunch of them, and I do feel bad about it, but they're small.
And do you burn them and then pass them on? You keep them?
Here's the thing that was kind of interesting is I thought I would, and then I was like, these already take up so little space.
All right.
You know, I was like, they're DVD. I could put them in a sleeve, you know, if I don't care about the box. I also keep the art, but I just take it out of the case.
Yeah.
And I realized that, especially for a Blu-ray, if you rip a Blu-ray, it's a lot of gigabytes.
Yeah.
It's actually, the Blu-ray is still sort of kind of an efficient storage mechanism over a hard drive. So I stopped doing that after I realized after a couple of runs, I was like, I'll just not have to do that, which has been good.
I have friends who use Plex, I think it's called.
Yeah, right.
Which is basically cloud.
I haven't tried that.
Storage for their movies, and they put it on Plex, and then they can access them anywhere they want, anytime. Yeah. And
seems great.
Yeah. So it's sort of a homegrown cloud version. Okay, so back to your tool, which is this directory of the thrift stores in the US, I presume, or is it worldwide, or what?
I've only looked in the US, so I think the thriftshopper.com is just for the United States.
Right, so if you want to find thrift stores while you're traveling, or even maybe better ones in your own area, you use this.
Yeah, and I have found some that Google doesn't have when I search Google, which is also nice.
Okay. So that's really great. And that is called the National Thrift Store Directory.
Yeah, the thriftshopper.com.
12,000 stores. Oh, and they also have reviews. People review them.
Yeah, it's good. Okay. You know, thrift store reviews are sort of like other reviews, but even more interesting in some ways, I think.
Yeah, I guess people have different ideas of what they expect from
what they expect. Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Oh, it's all clothes. Okay. Yeah. All right. I get it. So, okay. Right. So Rob, what's another tool?
Yeah. Let's see. Oh, okay. Okay, cool. So we're going to move. So another cool tool of chance for moving out of maybe antiquity of the thrift store and into an app, which I really like. It's called the Koala sampler app. And I know samplers have probably been on cool tools before.
I don't know what a sampler is. Tell me what a sampler is.
Sure. Yeah. A sampler is a fancy word for essentially a digital audio recorder with some extra features. And so if you think of like a voice memo recorder or something like that, right? Or even just the voice memo app on your phone, that is a type of sampler. It's recording your voice to a digital file. Musicians want special features around this type of functionality, right? Sampler is a way that traditionally might be used to record drums that a live musician might play. Mm-hmm. And then you would use these digitized samples or recordings of the audio to make your own drum patterns or something like that.
So like an output into a MIDI or something.
Exactly. Yeah. And I will admit I have owned many, many samplers in my life and have been largely fine with them, but they often suffer a lot of feature bloat and a lot of complexity that I think is kind of scary and off-putting to someone like me and to other people. And the Koala sampler app that I really like, it runs on Android devices and iOS devices. I have it on my phone and on my iPad. I'll just show you the phone app right here.
Yes, so you're holding up a screen and I see a lot of red squares and rectangles. And
yes, and each of those red squares holds a recording. That's right. Yep. And this is actually, I'll show you. Here is on my iPad. I cleared my iPad so you could see like what a person would see when they first load it. And it says here, press and hold a red pad to record. Right. And I'll just do it really quick. Greetings, Kevin. And now you can see the audio file.
Okay. All right.
In that square.
So what sampling is doing is not only recording it, but giving you kind of a display or interface.
That's right.
To work with these little tiny samples and maybe drag them around or combine them or in some ways play with them.
Exactly. And a lot of people know maybe what a soundboard is. A soundboard is used by podcasters or something to play, or on radio to use like a laugh track or something like that. And this Koala sampler, you can use just like a soundboard. You can record anything you want into these. And people, there's a really one of the reasons I want to recommend this is it's $4. But the second reason I want to recommend it is there's a really vibrant YouTube community around people who use this and people who come up with hacks like screen recording YouTube in order to then sample YouTube sounds into this and that sort of thing, which I find really fruitful and fun, and in a way, and something that sort of standard samplers don't do.
So what I'm getting is that the Koala app not just recording them, but also in some ways being able for you to use them, manipulate them, play with them once you've recorded them.
Exactly.
Which your voice memo is not going to be able to do.
That's right. That's right. And sort of, yes, kind of exactly. That's right. It's a really an interface to manipulate small chunks of sound or play them in a pattern, which is your voice memo tool won't do. And I particularly like the iPhone version because just like the sort of old adage of the best camera you can have is the one in your pocket, the best sampler you can have is the one in your pocket. And so you can be walking down the street or hear really interesting crows, I find, make really wonderful, interesting sounds. And I can just pull it out of my pocket while I'm walking the dog and record.
And then besides playing with it on the app, does what does output to other things easily?
It does, yeah. There's some sort of fancy features where you can pull it into other tools, more complex musician-friendly tools. I find that I probably should do that at some point, but I find that I never do. I just get so into making them, and then you can output the whole pattern to its own MP3 file or something like that if you want. So you can like make a little song right on the application. Right. And I find that's kind of the funnest thing to do.
So you can export as MP3 then, at least.
That's right. Yep, that's right. Yep.
Yeah. Well, that's really cool. Okay, Koala, is that
Koala? Yeah. Koala. I really love that it asks you to think about the sounds in the world differently, you know? And I find that type of exploration just really, really fun. And when you have a sampler on your desk in your office, you don't do that. But when it's in your pocket and you're walking around, you do.
Right. So, and you say it's $4.
Yep, $4.99. Yeah,
that's really great. It's like Procreate. It's like a one-time small fee. That's really good.
Totally. That's like 100 times cheaper than some samplers I've purchased.
And it also looks like it does some kinds of special effects.
It does, and that is a feature of many samplers.
All that kind of stuff.
Is echo or reverse, or and one of the things you'll find with a sampler is, I recorded 2 words, greetings, Kevin, but you can make a whole drum set out of just these little snippets of my S's sound like a cymbal, or my plosives sound like a bass drum, and you can really do a lot with just the voice.
That's really great. Okay. Koala sampler for the iPhone or Androids. That's really great. Okay. So Rob, your 4th tool.
Okay, cool. Back to the web. This is probably my most favorite, our most used cool tool on this list, which is the Open Library. That's openlibrary.org. It is a cool tool of chance for me. I don't use it in the way that someone might typically use a library, which is to go find a book that they know they need. I use it to find things that I didn't know I liked. So I'll do a search like squirrel, and then I'll just see what the results are. And I'm often prone to digging back into the oldest books I can find for that thing. Word, or especially ones before maybe 1960. And I have some reasons for that. One of them is I really enjoy old illustrations. And so before the advent of photography, and especially before it became cheap to put photos in books, we hired illustrators. And so I really love finding old illustrations in Open Library.
So the Open Library looks like is it run from the Internet Archive?
It is. Yeah, it was. I didn't know this until looking this up for the podcast, but it was an Aaron Schwartz project.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So it looks like this is like a totally scanned books, and
that's right.
That they're not just public domain. They're also looks like the stuff that's in copyright. But
it's a strange collection of both copyrighted and non-copyrighted material.
Right. So, but the idea is that these are, and what are you getting? Are you getting texts, or is it only text, or are they audible books as well, or what are they PDFs? What do you get?
There's a few different versions of the book you can get. I prefer just looking at the book in the viewer that's in the browser.
Okay.
And because I use it for kind of collecting illustrations, I often just make a screenshot of the illustration that I like off the browser. But you can certainly pull the text down into, I think, EPUB format. And they also use Adobe has this tool called like digital editions or something like that, that will allow you to read the sort of encrypted books as well.
On your phone, or is it all web-based?
I do it on my laptop. Digital Editions is a sort of installable Adobe tool, but they also for other. And so, sorry, I'll explain a little bit. You can check out some books, meaning for a short period of time, or there's some books that are just openly available, and you can download those straight to your computer. I do both.
Okay, and how is the search function? Is it pretty reliable? Do you?
It is, yeah. Again, I think because of how I use it, I think if I tried to search for something specific, it's not going to, like if I tried to search War of the Worlds, right, that's a book that's probably out of copyright, and that would, I'm not sure, it probably would come up. But I often am searching more general terms like lightning or maybe like cognitive science terms or something to get me to this sort of rich, these rich sets of illustrations that just look strange or interesting.
Yeah, this is back to kind of the serendipitous.
Yes, much like the thrift store. Yes, yeah.
So this is really cool. I mean, it can be used in conjunction with most libraries. Public libraries have access these days, online access. If you have a card, you can access quite a lot of books. But this looks like it may be good for those older, weirder, odd ones that
I agree. Yeah,
local library is unlikely to have in their collection.
That's exactly right, Kevin. That's exactly right. Yeah, there are often books that are you'll see. What's really fun about looking at books from the Open Library is they're scanned. And so one of the funnest things is to look at the first few pages, and you can see what library owned them, the checkout dates and stuff. And they're often quite old. I mean, I think a lot of the Open Library books is, when you go to the library in some universities and there's that floor of the library that no one goes to. Yeah. I think of the Open Library as that floor digitized. And, right. Instead of having to like wind all the stacks apart and stuff, you can internet search it.
Have you just, since you're interested in old illustrations and weird oddball corners, have you encountered the public domain review?
I just did, actually.
That was in Recommendo. Yeah.
Oh my God, I did. Yeah, I'm sure that's how I got it. It's so good. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's a wonderful project.
It's made for people like you who are into, what's the word I want? Esoteric and unconventional illustrations that usually were done long ago. Often with a different non-contemporary sensibility, which is one of the virtues, is because it's different. It's really
definitely different. It's weird to think of. I mean, I think YouTube now is a place where many of these books might live today. If I was someone today thinking about how would I explain what lightning is, YouTube might be the place I would go to do that in 2023. But in 1917, you wrote it out and you found an illustrator to illustrate the different types of lightning or something. And so I love it for that too, of just thinking like, I often put myself in that time to think about like, I'm an enthusiast about lightning. This is maybe how I would have done it instead of a YouTube video.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you're right. I mean, I can go on for hours about how I think YouTube is underappreciated, undervalued for the role that it actually has in our culture. And that's one part of it. So Rob, excuse me. What are you interested in these days? What do you want to share with listeners about?
This is the scariest part of the podcast. I have a new project that I'm starting that I'll tell listeners about. I would love for them to check it out. It's called KDZU.org. The website is up now, but the project is not quite launched, but it's really close. KDZU is a lot of people probably think like, oh, is that a radio station? And I will say this, it's a new creative project I'm working on that sort of embraces the theater of radio without having an actual transmitter.
Boy. Um, that reminds me of when I was in high school. We had a band that didn't play music.
Nice.
We had all the stuff,
I love
T-shirts,
That's so
newsletter, and
great.
everything else, but we didn't play any music. We just did the other stuff.
That is so cool. Oh my gosh. Wow. Can I ask what you were called?
The Purple 13.
Wow.
I did
That's
one of the
awesome.
first music videos in 1969, which is up on the web now.
Oh, I'm definitely gonna check that out.
And but so tell me about the radio, the theater. What did you say?
Sure.
It was?
Yeah,
It was,
KDZU. I think of it as a theater project, but I am going to play music. I think okay, so I'll try to explain it. So I think radio is still fascinating as a concept. That there's a human who wants to share music with the world, who has an interesting personality that's part of their creative expression that they use the microphone for. And so people may know the Electrifying Mojo from Detroit, who's a very kind of heroistic figure for me. Electrifying Mojo played wonderful music in the 80s and 90s in Detroit, but also had a ton of personality. People may know like Wolfman Jack also was this kind of a larger than life figure that he sort of used radio to create his character with. And so for me, KDZU is this idea of the radio station almost as a kind of spaceship or as a site that we see in video, and this will be on YouTube, as a kind of theater stage where music is played and personalities come out and guests come on. But it's using this kind of artifice of like the radio station with faders and microphones and on-air lights and that sort of thing to create the scene. But the point is to share music that I love and music that my guests will love with other people in the kind of age of algorithmic prediction, I guess. This might be a humanistic prediction.
So it's in some ways kind of like they always make a joke about, radio being without pictures. You have a face for radio.
Yes.
This is kind of like the YouTube version of a radio station.
Yeah. It really, that's exactly,
interesting. So it's as you said, it's all the visuals of the control board and people coming in and out on air light. It's really funny because I only spent 1 year in college, but during that year, I had a radio show in the morning, a college radio show, because nobody else was interested in the morning.
In the morning,
up early. I was.
Yep.
And I had total 100% freedom.
That's awesome.
Do whatever I wanted to do, as far as I could tell. Because it was like, I'm not even sure. Again, I was never sure how many people were listening because it's a morning college radio show. It's like
totally.
Up. I don't know, but I'm doing my thing. And it was the age when you were queuing up albums, records, vinyl, and you had little cassette recordings on tape for the they weren't the mini cassettes, they were bigger cassettes, almost like a VHS level thing that did the little what's the word, routines,
right
intros and stuff. You had to read the news from a teletype thing that would print out the news, and you'd be marking up before and then having to read the stuff. So it was very analog. There was I think that's what you're kind of going off. There was this analog sensibility to it that I guess was theatrical. Now that I'm thinking of it, you could probably make a sitcom that was just the radio room.
Right. And like WKRP in Cincinnati, was this kind of 80s TV show that was about radio, that I find interesting. And there was also this really great film from the 70s called Vanishing Point. It's one of these sort of cop chase muscle car films. Yeah. But there's Cleavon Little plays an amazing pirate radio broadcaster out of Goldfield, Nevada. And he sort of is the narrator of the film, and his radio voice is that narration. And it's a wonderful kind of way to use radio as a storytelling.
Wow, that's really great. Okay, so we'll look for. And is it like? Do you say kudzu?
Yeah, Kate. Yeah, exactly. It's. I'm from the South, and kudzu is a Japanese plant, I believe, that is not indigenous to the South, but was brought in for erosion control, I believe, or something like that. And it's sort of taken over the South. And I really love this idea of this kind of invasive species taking over. And so I used KDZU as my call letters.
Yeah. So that's really great. Well, readers, listeners can be directed there, and we'll wish you the best success.
Thank you. Thanks. It's launching this month, so I'm quite nervous, but I'm ready, I think.
And then going back to the dye and stuff. Do you use those in combination with some of those? What do they call these cards? These like oblique strategies.
Cards, yeah. I definitely
have
think
a little bit of element of that, but
yes, totally.
To kind of, if you don't want to just rely on numbers, to translate the numbers into some other dimensions. Do you ever work together with cards, or just use the cards themselves? Or
I do have an oblique strategies card deck, the Brian Eno sort of set of decision making tools. It's funny. I have thought about trying to make a set for myself, and I get so stymied trying to figure out what I would do or how to create that kind of maybe English language randomness or structure. So I've only stuck to the numbers, but I would love to eventually get to a place. And maybe using something from the open library or something like a cut up technique or something. Like maybe it's not for me to decide what the words are. Right. Like maybe I just have to cut them up some paragraphs and see what lands.
Well, I don't know if there's a oblique strategy app, but I think you could also make an app
for sure. Yeah.
That you shake the phone or something, and it gives you a new one.
I think shaking the phone is such a missed, wonderful gesture, like, I don't know, like it's certainly technically possible in our devices to shake it and have it do something. And I think that's such a wonderful gesture of frustration or excitement or enthusiasm that it would be really cool if we had more shaking interfaces.
The shake interface. Yeah. Well, I'm wondering if that's built into the OS somewhere.
Yeah, you would think so, right? You would think we certainly have the technology inside.
I remember there was something at one point that was a pretty basic command of shaking, but it didn't last very long.
Yeah, I mean, I imagine it's a kind of a strange thing to share with someone. Like you have to shake it, and maybe it shakes in our pocket too much. Or there's probably some constraints I'm not thinking about. But
I don't know if these walking apps can tell exactly what's a step and not. I would think that you would be able to know what a deliberate shake was.
Yeah, maybe you could do like a tap and hold and shake or something.
Or something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. There's some tricks there we could scheme up.
That's right. You're a UX guy. Okay, so.
Purple 13 was that your
Purple 13 Kevin Kelly on my site? Yeah, there's a little Allman Brothers really kind of I had an 8mm camera and own a couple rolls of film that I could afford. So but there's a mix of black and white and just silly stuff.
That's great.
Yeah,
that's great. Maybe the Purple 13 app is in someone's future. Got to keep the promotional materials going for Purple 13.
Yes. Oh my gosh. So this has really been great, Rob. Thank you for
Thank you so much.
The suggestions, and we really appreciate your volunteering to be on here. And best of luck with the kudzu.
I'm so excited. Thank you. I all of my friends are sick of me probably sharing episodes of cool tools. And so I'm totally excited to be on one.
Well, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin.
This year, our Cool Tools blog will be 20 years old, which means we've been posting something new every day for 20 years. It's only possible because of the very engaged and knowledgeable readers and listeners like yourself. You've kept this place going, and we are very grateful for you. With this idea of 20 years in mind, we decided to try an experiment this year, and I'm inviting our guests and listeners to join me on our Cool Tool Show and Tell, which is the program that you're listening to right now. So if you feel you'd make a good guest on this podcast, and have 4 uncommon tools that you'd like to share with us, please sign up on our form on the website, and we'll see about inviting you. You must be comfortable talking on a video, and you need to have some tools that you can show. We record on, as you know, on Zoom. We do a YouTube version, a video version of it, as well as an audible version. Fill out the form if you're interested, and list your 4 cool tools, and we'll see if there's a good fit. The applications aren't guaranteed in any way, and we're looking at tools that are new to us and appropriate tools, and whether the times will work for you. So we're really interested in hearing from people all over the world, not just in the US, although the tools have to be available online, easily available online. And if you are a longtime listener, you kind of know what the definition of our tools are. They're very broad. They can be anything that's handy, from something in the kitchen to something you use to travel, to a workshop, to something professional that we may not know about. We're really interested in things that we don't know anything about. So this is an open invitation. We'll give it a try. If you think you make a good guest for this podcast, fill out the form. There'll be a link somewhere on our website. And we look forward to chatting with you. Thank you.